The Nashville Predators get a big win over the Montreal Canadiens last night. Today, we will recap Nashville's 6-3 win over Montreal, and we're going to talk about what head coach John Hynes has done to get the team's offense firing. Plus, trade talks have begun. We'll break down the first of the roster rumors. All that's coming up on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every day. We are free and available on all podcasting platforms and on YouTube. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com, and I am usually joined by my partner in crime, Nick Morgan, but Nick has today off. We actually have a lot to get to today after one of those kind of few and far between feel-good hockey games from Bridgestone Arena last night. In case you missed it, the Nashville Predators won big over Montreal 6-3. Here's a little recap of the action in case you didn't get a chance to check out the game. It was action-packed, especially offensively for the Nashville Predators. First period started out, Joel Edmondson from Montreal was called for a delay of game penalty about 2.5 minutes into the game. The Predators' power play went to work. Cody Glass got the first goal of the game about 4 minutes in, scored on a tip-in goal, working that net front area. About 1.5 minutes later, Colton Sissons got a 2-on-1 chance with Filip Forsberg and sank that goal past the Canadiens goaltender, earning Filip Forsberg a point for the assist, adding to his impressive offensive numbers as of late. At 10:42 in the first period, Mattias Ekholm scored on a shot from the blue line that would have been a second power play goal of the game if he had gotten it off just 1 second sooner. They had just cracked that door open. Otherwise, could have been another really fun stat for the Predators. Downside of that first period, the Nashville Predators did that Predators thing they do sometimes, giving up a last-minute goal in the first period off of a Duchene turnover. Cole Caufield rallied that puck and scored on Saros with kind of a nifty move and a backhanded shot. So first period ended with the Predators up 3-1. Second period started out a little dicey, if we're being honest, as Josh Anderson got the Habs within 1 goal at 6:40 on a shot that kind of bounced off Saros's glove and into the net. But the young hero of the game, Tommy Novak, who clearly knows that the slot is not, in fact, lava, my friends, because he headed right there, received a terrific pass from Yakov Trenin from behind the net to get the lead back to 2 goals for the Nashville Predators. Later in the second period, Tommy Novak returned the favor, finding Roman Josi streaking into the net, hit him with a really nice cross-ice pass to make it a 5-2 game. In the third period, Matt Duchene added a power play goal on a 5-on-3 opportunity, and then Nashville gave up one more late period goal with just 3 minutes left. God bless Alexander Carrier's stick broke as he was trying to clear the puck. He desperately tried to play defense with his hand, but Mike Hoffman found Brendan Gallagher, who scored late in the third period to make the final score of this game 6-3 Nashville. I will tell you, one of the things I noticed in this game, sticks were breaking last night left and right. It was a whole thing. I don't know what was going on with the sticks last night, but in the end, it cost Nashville a goal, but they got the win, a big win. Granted, not over one of the top teams in the league, and it's not that I don't know that, but Predators scoring 6 goals last night from 6 different players. So as we like to do at Locked On Predators, we always like to do one word to describe the game. And so my one word is a very Brady hockey game. This was a hockey game where you had 6 goals from 6 different goal scorers. If I was any good at Photoshop, my friends, and I am not, I would put together a graphic with the Brady squares and put each of the 6 goal scorers in a square. Because it was a really good night offensively for the Nashville Predators up and down the lineup. We had goals coming in a number of ways. You had your very pretty Marcia goals, Roman Josi's goal from the pass from Tommy Novak. Great. That was a very Marcia goal. You had some of your kind of younger, cute goals. You had a Bobby goal, Cody Glass tipping it in net front on the power play to open the scoring. So you had a lot of different goal scorers, but altogether a very entertaining game. Just like, you have these 6 kids thrown together and they make a pretty entertaining family. This was not, I want to be clear, this was not a perfect game. This was not a little problem, cleaned it up in 30 minutes or less like the Brady Bunch. There were definitely some trouble with some turnovers. And the Predators committed 4 penalties. There was even a stretch where there was a brief 5-on-3 chance for Montreal. Fortunately, penalty kill came up really big for the Predators last night. Montreal did not score at all on the man advantage. So it was not a perfect game. It was not a win over a top team in the league. So I understand, we don't want to take this 6-3 win over Montreal and suddenly say we're coming for the cup. But this was an important win for the Nashville Predators. The thing that was so important about this win is that it was a confidence building game for the team offensively and on special teams. And look, these are 2 areas where, especially at the beginning of the season and into November and early December, Nashville has really struggled offensively. And oh my goodness, do we even need to talk about the power play statistics from earlier in the season? Nashville, much better performance on special teams, but their statistics to begin the season were so abysmal. I don't think Nashville is going to be able to climb up the rankings when it comes to power play, despite how well they're performing lately. But this was a game that was really a confidence building game for the Nashville Predators. And this is a confidence that they're going to need. They're headed into a 5-game road trip against some of the top teams in the league. And the Predators are a team that have not been playing with much confidence lately. They really have sort of struggled. They've been generating offensive chances, but not finishing. I think, it's just been one of those stretches where what they've needed is some success offensively. What they've needed is a little bit of confidence. So to get a win like this, to have scoring up and down the lineup, like, I get it. It's not like we just beat the Boston Bruins, but Montreal came into this game really wanting a bounce back win. They were coming off of a 9-2 loss to the Caps. So they came in hungry to this game. Nashville was able to execute well. They were able to get scoring up and down the lineup in a variety of ways. So it's a good confidence builder for a team that I think maybe has struggled with confidence early in the season. So coming up, we're actually going to hear from head coach John Hynes on what he and the team have been doing recently to sort of up their offensive production. And also, we're going to hear from him about line combinations. That's a topic that sometimes ruffles some feathers among Predators fans, but we're going to hear from him about how line combinations are also helping offensive production. We're going to talk about that in a minute. First, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur sport. They cover everything from, of course, pro football to college and professional basketball. They had all the stats you could want on the World Cup. And of course, BetOnline.net has hockey coverage. If you love sports podcasts, and I'm assuming you do if you're here, you can find more of those at betonline.net as well. They are always the fastest and easiest way to get all of the betting information that you need. So head to their website today, or you can use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. So one of the big successes in the game last night and recently for the Nashville Predators that I think we need to spend a minute and give some kudos on is the power play. So the Predators last night went 2 for 4 on the power play. Look, here's what's real. It could have been 3 for 4 had Mattias Ekholm gotten a shot off like a second sooner, because he scored literally as, the door was opening. So they're 3 for 4 in our hearts, 2 for 4 on the statistics sheet, whatever. Power play goals from, again, Cody Glass, great net front tip in, and Matt Duchene scored on a 5-on-3 in the third period. I am loving little Cody Glass. I say little Cody Glass. I understand he is a grown man, but Cody Glass net front on the power play has been really good. And Mattias Ekholm's shot that in our hearts was a power play goal, but not on the stat sheet. Cody Glass didn't get a tip in on that, but he was definitely, kind of causing traffic, causing havoc, blocking the vision of the goaltender. So net front presence on the power play is becoming a really important part of the success they're seeing. And the Predators, I can't believe I'm saying this, are seeing success on the power play. They have scored a power play goal in 6 of their last 7 games. The only game they did not score a power play goal in was against Dallas. The Preds are 7 for 19 on the man advantage since December 19th. So something that was dreadful at the beginning of the season really has started to turn around for the Predators. After the game, we got a chance to talk to Mattias Ekholm, and he really pointed out how critical the power play was last season to the Predators being able to make it into the playoffs, and just how important it is to see that get going right now. This is something that, oh my goodness, has it been a struggle. It's been a struggle. The power play was 2 minutes of rest for the opponent for far too long the beginning of this season. So getting to see the man advantage actually become an advantage for the Nashville Predators, really a big improvement for the team, and an important improvement, maybe timely down the stretch if the Predators can keep it up. The power play could be a difference maker down the stretch, depending on how, this next month, again, January, brutal, December, horrible, January, not fun either, but the power play could be a difference maker for them. One of the things we saw in the game last night was not just how important special teams were. The penalty kill also very effective, killed off 4 penalties. And like I said, there was a brief period of 5-on-3 opportunity for Montreal that Nashville handled really well. But offensively, the Predators are finally getting a lot of offensive success. They've had offensive chances. They've generated offensive chances earlier in the season. They just hadn't been able to finish. Now they're hitting that stride. So the Preds have 16 goals in their last 3 games. 16 goals in 3 games. 28 goals in their last 7 games. So what is going right finally with this offense? They were struggling to get goals in early December. They won a few games in November with scores of 2-1 or, 3-2. They were shut out by Detroit, shut out against St. Louis. So scoring goals has been a problem for the Predators. We got a chance to ask John Hynes, how did you go from having trouble scoring and getting goals on the board to being able to generate the amount of goals that they have in the last 3 games, 7 game stretch? And John Hynes really gave us some great insight into what the team has been doing over the last couple of weeks to improve offensively. This is what he had to say.
Really worked on the process here pretty heavily, I'd say, for about 3.5 weeks to a month. And I think, like in anything, when something's a little bit stagnant or you're in a little bit of a rut, sometimes you don't just jump right out of it. You take steps. And, we've had a lot of emphasis on it in video, one-on-one meetings, practice time. I think we all felt internally that it was even 2 or 3 weeks ago that it was turning and, our game was going in the right direction as far as that. And, we were generating more looks, but the execution wasn't as good. And now we're generating looks, and I think, we're in those situations more, and the guys are, they have some good, the execution is better as well. But I also think the chance generation and creating offense in multiple ways, that's something that we've really stressed, and I think we're doing a good job, in whether it's off the rush, offensive zone. We've done a better job getting to the net front, zone 1 area. So, that's how you have to be a hard team to play against if you can generate in different ways.
I really love that insight from John Hynes. I think it's very easy, especially from the outside looking in, when you look at a team that is struggling offensively. I think it's pretty easy to chalk it up to poor roster construction or, this is a talent related problem. And I think that happened a lot with the Nashville Predators early in the season. People were saying this isn't a team that can score. Forsberg and Duchene couldn't possibly recreate the numbers that they had last year. Same with Roman Josi. And while that may be true, while they may not be able to recreate those numbers, the Predators have been working internally on how to finish the chances they're generating. And they're doing it in a variety of ways. And I think it's a really interesting time to follow the Nashville Predators because of that. For so long, the Predators have talked about, identity hockey. That's the buzzword that, we've talked about here at Locked On Predators. You always hear them talking about identity hockey. That's hard forechecking. That is tough to play against. But I think you're seeing some transition to the Predators style of hockey. You are seeing them playing, like Hynes said, you're seeing them capitalize on things like rush chances. You're seeing them getting net front. You're seeing them getting tip in goals where the offense is being generated in a variety of ways, and it's happening up and down the lineup. It feels like this team is playing differently than they did at the beginning of the year. It feels like this team is more than just a one-dimensional team. We've talked a lot about how the Predators struggle against teams with speed. I think you're seeing Nashville now capitalize on the fact that they have a game that they can play with some speed. They are capitalizing on rush chances. They are executing better on cross ice passes. They are getting to the net front. They are getting to those high danger areas, and they're executing better. So it's an interesting time to follow this team because I think we're seeing their style of play expand. I don't think they're going to get away totally from the forechecking, from that identity style of hockey, but you're seeing this team become a more well-rounded team offensively, and that is something that really needed to happen for the Predators. Another thing that John Hynes talked about last night that I thought was really interesting is talking about how in these last 3-4 games, you're seeing scoring come from up and down the lineup. We've had periods this season where the top guys were just in scoring droughts. Forsberg, Duchene would go stretches without points. Roman Josi had a 5-game stretch, I believe, where he went without points. And then you had just little blips of some secondary scoring, but nothing super consistent for this team. what we're seeing in these last couple of games when they're generating so many goals is you're seeing scoring up and down the lineup. And that was something that we talked with John Hynes about, just how important is it that you're getting contributions from this team up and down the lineup. And he had some pretty interesting insight into what that does, not just on the scoreboard, but internally for the team as well.
Important. I mean, I think when you have that, it is a recipe to be able to win regularly, where it doesn't put so much pressure on certain guys to be able to score. I think when you have depth scoring in your lineup, it certainly gives your team the best chance to win on a regular basis, and I think it also creates internal competition. I think when you have guys, and we feel like we have 3 lines that are 4 lines that are playing well, and I think that creates that internal competition, because if you want to get the ice time and you want to play, you have to be able to keep up with the group the groups that are playing really well. So I think on multiple fronts, it's really truly what you want in a team.
I love the internal competition aspect of that. I think that's something that maybe we tend to overlook. When you want to earn ice time, you've got to do it by being productive with your line mates. And Hynes has put together some really successful lines. And I know it's been a whole thing. Like, we went into this season thinking that we were definitely going to see Forsberg, Duchene, Granlund together. I would have bet, maybe my firstborn, that we would see Forsberg, Duchene, Granlund stick together for majority of this season. I love my firstborn, and I really wouldn't have bet her. But I'm saying, with the success that they had last season, it just seemed like that was going to be a for sure line. Joey with Nito Niederreiter, because they have had, past history and chemistry, and they started the season out together. Hynes has really had to sort of juggle this roster to figure out what is working. And one of the lines that I really like is Granlund, Niederreiter, and Glass. And this is a trio of players who you're seeing working really well together. Nino Niederreiter, kind of a veteran presence. Cody Glass coming into his own after, he's a man. I know he's a man. That man has really had a challenging stretch in the NHL, and he's coming into his own. He's, taken his time to develop. And you throw in Mikael Granlund, who has had some of his better games offensively together. And that's a line that is also going up against the top lines that they're playing against. They were the line that was out there for a majority of the time against Cole Caufield, Nick Suzuki, Kirby Dach last night. The same thing in Edmonton. So you're creating these lines, and as they gain success, they are also creating internal competition. And I think part of that is paying off. You've got people that are hungry for ice time. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective from John Hynes. Just not only how does it work on the ice, but how do these line combinations affect each other off of the ice, and how is that affecting this offensive production that we're finally seeing from the Nashville Predators. Mattias Ekholm, another player who had a great game last night. There is nothing that delights me more than bragging on my Swedish brethren. Coming up, we're going to hear from Mattias Ekholm. We talked to him about playing with Alexander Carrier, and let's just face it, we are getting to the stretch of the season where we are all clutching our pearls and our phones a little tighter as trade talks heat up. Could the Nashville Predators be thinking about making a move on defense? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But first, want to thank you again for making Locked On Predators your first listen every day. Now go and check out Locked On NHL Prospects. This is your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars, all leading up to the NHL draft, which will be right here in Nashville. They will have NHL draft rankings and top prospect comparisons for every team on the podcast. So check out Locked On NHL Prospects. It's available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So Mattias Ekholm was one of the players on the roster who had a bit of a slower start to the season, but can we all just agree that the great Swedish Redwood is finally hitting his stride now? It's been up and down. We have talked about bringing in Ryan McDonagh and how the plan was sort of to have McDonagh and Ekholm together. Gave that some time, not sure it was the best fit, and so Hynes has adjusted the defensive pairings, and I think he's really landing somewhere good. Josi and McDonagh seem to be a great partnership. Josi a little free to do his Josi things. McDonagh really responsible stay-at-home defender. And shout out to McDonagh. Did not get a goal last night, but man, did he have a couple of just phenomenal defensive plays. So shout out to Ryan McDonagh, who may not score a bunch of goals, but by dang, he really came up with some great defensive plays in the game last night. Ekholm had a goal last night in the game. He is spending a lot more time back reunited, and it feels so good, with Alexander Carrier. Alexander Carrier kind of been here, there, and everywhere. Same with Ekholm. Put the two of them back together, and this is a pairing that are seeing a lot of ice time, and they're seeing a lot of ice time again up against top lines that the Predators are facing. Got a chance to talk to Ekholm after the game last night and asked him about working with Alexander Carrier and what he sees from this defensive partner as they work together.
It's been fun to watch. I think he's a great partner to me. I think he wants to learn. He wants to be better all the time, and we communicate a lot, which is a huge key. I feel like when you're out there with a partner, you need to know where they're at, and he's not afraid to talk out there and make me know where he's at, and vice versa. So I think it's been a good partnership so far. I think we get a lot of heavy matchups, and so far for these, I don't know, we've played for on and off for 2 years, and it's been really good so far.
Love the combination of Ekholm and Carrier. And again, it has taken some time for the Predators to shift this lineup and to find what's working, not just with the forwards, but defensively as well. And to be able to see Carrier with Ekholm, and you're noticing in the game last night, you noticed Alexander Carrier, Jeremy Lauzon kind of dropping down into the offensive zone, kind of getting into the play. That's something that Carrier has wanted to do, and I think he is more free to do that when he is playing with Mattias Ekholm. That's a defensive pairing that really is working well for the Nashville Predators. And again, they're getting hard minutes against top lines and performing really well. But now we're getting into this trade talk time, and there is a hitch in the little gastrointestinal giddy up when we're talking about Mattias Ekholm. Could the Nashville defense look different in a few weeks? Oh my gosh. Frank Saravelli upset my apple cart. He is from the Daily Faceoff, wrote an article about some trade targets, and he just had the nerve to mention Mattias Ekholm as a possible trade target for teams. Oh my gosh. This was stressful enough when it happened last season with Mattias Ekholm. Ekholm is in his first year of a 4-year deal. He's $6.25 million a year. He's got 3 goals, 10 assists, and 13 points in the season so far. And again, really interesting, rough sort of transitional season for Ekholm. Started with McDonagh, now finding his groove with Carrier. So I think that maybe contributed to a slower start, settling the defensive pairings in where they're going to work best. But oh my gosh, Mattias Ekholm. The trade talks again. I almost can't even, my friends. I will tell you my favorite Mattias Ekholm story, and there are several, but my favorite one is David Poile sharing that when all of the buzz last season was about Mattias Ekholm as a top trade target, Ekholm just walked into Poile's office and point blank looked at him and said, "Am I being traded?" And telling the story, Poile kind of laughed and said, I don't have a lot of players that come in and talk to me like that. But you know what? That's Mattias Ekholm. Am I being traded? I don't know whether the Predators are really entertaining this. I understand why teams would be very interested in Mattias Ekholm. Would the Predators entertain an Ekholm trade? I don't know. But this is what I do know. If the Nashville Predators trade Mattias Ekholm, that right there tells you everything you need to know about where management feels this team is. If they trade Mattias Ekholm, that is saying that they do not believe that this team is playoff ready, and you can expect a rebuild, a competitive retooling, a youth movement, whatever you want to call it. If Mattias Ekholm is traded away from the Nashville Predators, and I'm not saying it would happen, I'm saying there's going to be interest in it. And if David Poile pulls the trigger on something like that, that is a statement move. That is going to tell you where the Nashville Predators are going to be headed in the next 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Because you do not trade away Mattias Ekholm and expect to be the same team that is going to be competitive and have a goal of making it to the second round of the playoffs. That's just simply not what you do. So keep an eye on Mattias Ekholm. Again, generating interest, 100% sure that is true. Not 100% sure that David Poile is at a point where he would entertain that move. But if for some reason Poile pulls the trigger on an Ekholm trade, friends, that tells you everything you need to know about the Nashville Predators' future. Another defensive kind of rumbling idea, what's going on, speculation that I feel like we have to talk about, even though we don't have any hard data yet. Dante Fabbro. Dante Fabbro has 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points on the season. He's had a couple of rough moments in some games recently, and Fabbro was a healthy scratch in last night's game against Montreal. Now, can we read a lot into that maybe isn't there? Yes. Let's be honest. John Hynes oftentimes healthy scratches players when they need just a palate cleanse reset. We've seen it with a number of players this season. That could be all there is to it with Dante Fabbro. However, Roland McEwen came into play last night. I'm wondering, are they seeing, could he be somebody that could jump in and fill in if Dante Fabbro is traded? McEwen did play fewest minutes. He didn't get any special teams time, played a little over 14 and a half minutes, did fine. Are the Nashville Predators entertaining options for Dante Fabbro? It would not surprise me. Do we have hard evidence that that is happening? No. Is the healthy scratch last night an indication that the Predators are going to trade him? Not necessarily, but this is something to keep an eye on. And I also want to just put another dot out there, not saying I'm going to connect these dots, but just a little name to keep in the back of your mind. Ryan Merkley from the San Jose Sharks. So Ryan Merkley, this is his first season. He, 39 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. He is rumored to be out and available, that the Sharks are maybe looking to make some sort of a trade for him. I'm just putting 2 dots out there and not necessarily connecting them, but keep that name in the back of your mind. If the Predators decide to do something different with Dante Fabbro, with the defense, Ryan Merkley could be a young player that David Poile might be interested in bringing in defensively. If you want to learn a little bit more about Merkley, you need to check out Locked on Sharks. Our good friend JD Young is the host there, and he's actually doing an episode today on Merkley and his future with the Sharks and just sort of his skill set. So something to keep in the back of your mind. Again, I'm not connecting those dots. I'm just putting 2 dots out there. Let's see what happens. It will be interesting to see if Dante Fabbro is a healthy scratch as the Predators get ready for a 5-game road trip against some pretty tough competition. And of course, at Locked On Predators, we will keep our eyes and ears open and bring you any trade news whenever it may happen. Tomorrow's episode, we're actually going to take a closer look at Nashville's 5-game road trip. And we're going to preview the game tomorrow night against the Carolina Hurricanes, Nino Niederreiter's former team. He is back at his former home. So we're going to talk about that game. It's going to be a challenge for the Predators. We're going to talk about what the keys to this game are going to be for Nashville. We're also going to take a quick look around the league at which teams are trending up and which teams we think are trending down as we head into the early stretch of 2023. In the meantime, you are welcome to check out my work at InsideThePreds.com. You can also find me on Twitter at ANK, Mama on Ice. Follow the show at LO_Predators on Twitter. And whether you are watching us on YouTube or you're listening in on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to subscribe so you will be the first to know when we drop new episodes every day, Monday through Friday. So that's going to do it for today's Locked On Predators podcast. We hope you are going to have a great day. Nick and I will be back tomorrow, and we'll have an all-new episode.